Welcome back to Money and Mantras, where we talk about money, mindset, relationships, and all those things that have made this crazy thing called life a little more interesting. Today, we're talking about golf and life, and honestly, the more I think about it, the more I realize that we're pretty much the same thing. We're in the same game. You start off thinking you've got a plan, you stand over the ball with confidence, you take your shot, and then somehow your ball ends up in the woods. And honestly, Vipin, that's the way it works for me each and every time. I play a game of whack, damn. Well, I play it as another game, but I'm trying to keep it clean for the show. I hit that ball, and I'll tell you what, I can hit a 300-yard shot, but it's like 100 yards up, 100 yards to the wrong side, and 100 yards down. It just is not a golfer myself.
Yeah. I play and I really enjoy the game. And when I heard this quote that I'm sure you'll read or we'll state out loud today from Bobby Jones, I thought that was just amazing. That golf is like life, and you never know where the ball's going to land. I don't care how good you are. Every single person who's played, we've seen Tiger Woods shank it, we've seen McElroy shank it, and everybody does it. Even those guys play professionally, they play 4 to 5 hours a day, and their ball goes in places that they never planned on it going. And you got to play the ball where it lands. And that's the same thing in life. You got to play life wherever it lands you. If that's a car accident in a bad situation, or at the mountaintop of your career, and there's downhills from there. And so no matter how exciting things are, no matter how depressing things are, life's going to throw you twists and turns. And I think the funny thing in life is there are 3 constants for me. One is death. The second is taxes. And number 3 is change. It's going to change on you on unexpected ways. It always is. There's always a change. And so, life is a lot like golf, my friend.
Well, live life like as it comes to you too, because I think that a lot of times people tend to put up those blocks that says, you know what, I can't do that. That's not in my realm of possibilities. That's not something that I'm comfortable with. That's not something that I'm used to doing. We need to get outside of our realm of comfort and do things that put us and make us a little uncomfortable, because that's what's going to help you to grow, and that's what's going to help you to become the best person, the best you that you can be.
Yeah, I totally agree. I preach that. I think that you grow only through being uncomfortable. When you're in a comfort zone, you're basically dying or basically just surviving. That's constant, and things are going to get uncomfortable real fast. It's just a matter of time in some situations or not. So I think being uncomfortable, I can say yesterday I ran into a friend, and a friend had a bunch of friends from the neighborhood. We're about an hour and a half east of Seattle at a resort. It's Sunday afternoon, and we're playing this amazing Arnold Palmer designed course. And for those that don't know, Arnold Palmer is considered one of the best golfers of all time. And there's a friend of mine that shows up there, and he's the group ahead of us. And the guys, we joke around a little bit on the 10th hole, and on the 11th hole, they decide to let us pass because they were playing kind of slow. They weren't that good. But my friend is an MBA from a major top 10 university. He's a chief marketing officer. I don't think he's currently working, but he's chief marketing officer for a lot of tech companies. And he's your prototypical all-American guy. He's got a perfect life. He's got 2 kids, perfect dog, lives in half a block from this amazing view. Just the nicest guy you can imagine. And his friends were nice. They said hello and all of this stuff, right? They let us pass on the 11th hole. Of course, they're watching all of us hit the ball. So now we have an audience who is giving us the credit because we're playing faster than they are. And now we're under pressure. And so you're uncomfortable because all of a sudden there's your friend and his friends watching you play, and you got to hit the ball down this hill 200 yards to see where it lands. And every single guy on that group hit the ball perfectly. And I get up there and I'm ready to be in the uncomfortable zone, and I hit the shot of my life. I
Oh,
was,
wow.
yeah,
I really thought you were gonna go the other way. It's like shanked it to the left and it went into the woods
sand.
and I lost
Ex-
it.
Exactly. That's usually what happens with me is one good shot and two bad shots. But in this case, it went perfectly straight, right at the pin, and about 10
Uh-huh.
yards from the pin. And I had a
Wow.
second putt that was awesome. I think I got a 3 or a 4 on that one. It was a par 3, and it was a perfect shot. But the pressure of having people watch you is one thing. Pressure of people watching you that are expecting you to be better than them because they're letting you pass. And then on top of that, the pressure of your friend, who's this all-American guy that I built up. We were super successful, and friends are successful, and they're all there watching you. That's uncomfortable, man. That's
Mhm.
nerve-wracking. And men are men, huge egos for a lot of them. And we live in this pretty amazing neighborhood, and all the guys in his group were from that same neighborhood. And it was pressure time. It was uncomfortable. Surprisingly, I got lucky. That's the way I look at it, or God gave me some grace there. But yeah, it was pretty amazing. But that was under pressure. So no matter where the ball lands in sand, and sometimes sand pits are a lot harder, it's uncomfortable, but you got to go for it. You got to swing. You
Mhm.
got to take the swing. And just like life, you got to act. You got to do something.
I think a lot of times we end up obsessing over that bad shot instead of looking for the next shot, I mean, to kind of use the golf metaphor that, damn it, I missed that out. I should have said yes there instead of no, but instead of obsessing about that, look to the next shot. And then that way, maybe you'll get a birdie instead of, whatever the bad thing is when it
Yeah,
comes to
yeah.
golfing for golf score.
So what was interesting that you mentioned that, and you just took the playbook out of my hands, and our chemistry is pretty amazing. One of the things that we talked about this weekend and Saturday night we played a very tough course on Saturday night. One of the
Oh,
hardest courses I've ever played. And all of us played really bad. Yesterday was this fancy course. It was also not easy, but we played well. So I got pars on 3 out of the 5 holes.
nice.
To get par on par fours and a par 3 is very hard. I have never done 3 pars out of the par 5 or the 5 holes. And the reason I did that was in this concept of life, there's a book out there, and I've talked about it before with you. And he's written a second book that we'll talk about in a second. But I was reading a meme or something on Facebook, and it said, top 10 books you've never heard about that are life changing. And on that list of the top 10 books was The Inner Game of Tennis. And you and I have
Yep,
talked
we've
about
talked
Inner
about
Game of
that one.
Tennis. The game is between our ears in our brain. And one of the tools that he talks about is there's 2 things that I wanted to capture for everybody on this thing, game of life. So the book is not about tennis. The book is about game of life, what's between your ears and your brain, when your thought process. And he says there's 2 things you got to focus on, not your swing in tennis, not your golf game. And he did write a book called Inner Game of Golf, even though the guy was not a golfer. And he shot an 85 at St. Andrews. He shot an 84, actually. His goal was to shoot an 85, which is super hard to do at St. Andrews. That's the home of golf. And he says 2 things. One thing you just mentioned a second ago, what I'll say. The most important thing in life, I think, is focus on what you want. If you constantly focus on what you want, what's next, whatever, but saying that this is what you're determined to get, what's the outcome that you want? Now, you can't get attached to it because you may not get it and you can be disappointed and all that. So don't expect it, but focus on it. Go after it. You might just get it and you might get more than that. You may not get it. You got to readjust, right? All those plans and everything. But focus on what you want. And in this analogy of golf, I focused a lot on where I wanted the ball to go to. The day before, I was focused on not moving my head. And of course, I was moving my head more often than not. This time, I focused on where I want the ball to land. And about 80% of the time, it landed where I wanted to land. I probably shot one of the best scores I've ever shot, especially on a difficult course like that. Now, the second thing is what you mentioned is what he says in the book is don't worry about the last shot. Don't talk about it. Don't think about it. The last shot in life is what just happened, good or bad. You just said you played whack and damn. Whack and damn. The damn part about you spent so much energy focusing on the past, that you're going to miss the next shot. You're not focused on the next shot where you want the ball to go to. So the key is, that's why it's so important to focus on what you want. Because if you focus on what went bad, your mind is still grabbing attention to it. Your mind is
Right.
still battling, and you're not focused on the next shot. That's why a lot of people play a really bad game of golf and they play a really bad game of life. They focus on, they get resentments, they got issues with people, they got bad things that happen to them. They're replaying this bad scene of their life over and over again.
Well, it's a
Gotta-
lot of that manifesting stuff that we were talking about in the past. That, I mean, once you start thinking about it and you start obsessing about it and start using your mind and your brain power on it, then you'll end up with it, good or bad. So that's why you got to focus on the good rather than on the bad things. And that's something that I've learned just since we've started doing this podcast a couple of years ago, is that we manifest a lot of things to ourselves just by thinking about it, because we're bringing either good power or bad power toward getting something done and toward the ultimate goal or the ultimate outcome that we're looking for.
Exactly. Good and bad, like you said.
Yeah.
Bad too, right? You focus on the past, focus on the mistake, focus on the damn, you're going to get the bad outcome. It's just the way it is. Now, I want to mention two very famous people who are athletes and are Super Bowl winning athletes in the football. NFL season starting pretty soon. I watched a game last night. My Seahawks were playing against Tennessee. So I'm really excited about football season coming up. Pete Carroll, the coach of the Seahawks, also New England Patriots and USC, won national championships at USC in college, came and won the Super Bowl, went to the Super Bowl twice with the Seahawks. Then there's Tom Brady, who won 7 Super Bowls as a quarterback. 7 Super Bowls is a lot for one guy. It's a lot for any dynasties. And he was part of the dynasty at New England. Then he went to Tampa Bay and won a Super Bowl there. He credits, and same as Pete Carroll, credits the key to his success in the inner game of life, inner game of tennis. Those two are on record saying, and Pete actually even wrote an intro to the book, a later edition of it. Pete met the author in 79 or 81 at University of Pacific when Pete was doing his master's in sports psychology. Met the author, started getting engaged with it, the philosophy. And like I said, the two most important things in the game of life are focus on what you want and don't talk about the last shot. Don't think about the last shot. Now, the two things we talked about, of the second thing, don't talk about the last shot. Well, you almost mentioned, or like, focus on the good stuff. Don't focus on a great shot either. That's going to make you more lax. You're not going to focus on what happens with a great shot is you're going to give yourself too much credit. You're going to stay in the excitement. You're not going to focus on what you want. So the key is to constantly focus on what you want. Good shot or a bad shot that happened to you, you got to let it go. And letting go and focusing on what you want is the key. Go ahead.
But we also do have to celebrate our victories, though, because those small victories add up to a big win a lot of times, too. So, I mean, you do have to take time and say, you know what, Vipin, great shot, or you know what, Bob, good job on doing that. That's exactly what needed to be done. You can't let that stuff just slide by, I think.
Do it after the game in a celebration standpoint. Don't do it in the middle of the play in football, clearly, right? You got to focus on the next play, 30 seconds quickly. Same thing with golf. 30 seconds later, you got to hit the ball. Now, there is a congratulatory thing with golf. If your friend hits a great shot, and one of my friends was just on fire yesterday, and you got to congratulate people on their games. What I'm saying is don't get too attached to the outcome of good or bad. So celebrate it, get excited, and quickly focus on what's next. Quickly focus on the next shot. Now, the one thing that we haven't talked about, and the Bobby Jones quote, do you have that in front of you, or do you want me to read it?
Why don't you read it? Because I don't have it.
That's all right. So basically, Bobby Jones said this, and golf is the closest game to the game we call life. You get bad breaks from good shots. You get good breaks from bad shots. But you have to play the ball as it lies. And the older I get, the more I realize the key is actually acceptance of where the ball lies. When you accept the fact that it went there and don't judge it, good or bad, and accept the fact that that's where it lies, you got to play it. That's kind of the key to start turning your energy into how do you stop talking about the past, good or bad? You accept where it is, and then you move your mindset to thinking about it. Now, most people don't know this, but Bobby Jones was hurt. He had a disease of some sort, and he ended up being in a wheelchair. And people asked him about whatever's going on. Do you still play golf, or how can you play golf? And you were a great golfer. And he kept on saying, you got to play the ball where it lands. You got to go with life where it takes you. He didn't feel sorry for himself because in a wheelchair later in part of his life. And most people don't know this about Bobby Jones, but he played in the 1920s. He founded the Augusta National Golf Club.
Huh.
And you know what that is? That is the Masters. Every spring in America and the world of golf celebrates the Masters. It is the best tournament in golf today. And we have to give credit to Bobby Jones to finding it. So you can do amazing things, not only as a player, but as a heritage and a tradition that he's created. And by simply accepting the fact that you got to play the ball where it lies. You got to deal with life where it's at for you today. That's kind of the key. Any thoughts?
Well, I was just after you had asked about the quote, so I pulled up the text that you'd sent earlier and was looking at it, and you're absolutely right. We do have to learn how to play the ball where it lies because oftentimes things don't go the way that we want them to go. And it's all about the recovery and getting back on, getting back to the fairway or getting to, it's all about the next shot. It's all about setting yourself up for that win rather than, taking the mulligan.
Exactly.
Those are my golf metaphors there, Vip, and I hope they worked.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting. Now, I had to take 3 mulligans yesterday. So I had asked, you're allowed to have 1 on each 9 hole. That's how I understand it from Friends Golf. In real golf, you're not allowed to get any mulligans, but I had a really bad shot on the 17th hole or 16th hole, whatever it was. So I took another mulligan. So that's my score really wasn't that good. It would be 3 to 5 scores worse, but you got to hit where it lies. Now, how does this relate to money and mantras is the big question and tying it together. So a lot of us want money. A lot of us have reasons for why we want it. Freedom, success, feeling confident, having the flexibility to living where we want to live, living where we need to live, living the lifestyle, travel, cars, houses, the boats, things like that, right? Whatever your reason for wanting money is your reason. Nobody else needs to judge it for you. It's your life. You're in control of it. As you focus on what you want, the big thing between your ears is your brain. Brain is tied to your heart. We talk about the chakra system and the mantra system, right? And so getting your mind incoherent with your energy, which comes from your heart. We talked about electricity in the past. How do you get centered? How do you focus on what you want on a consistent basis? We've talked about meditation and we talked about mantras. So continue to focus when things are bad to recover in life. Things can get really bad. You can lose your business, lose your job. Bad things can happen. You can get hit in a car accident. Bad things at some point in life will throw you off your kilter. To get back to that recovery of that focusing on what you want, we need a thought process. We need to change our thinking. One of the best ways that we've talked about it in the past is mantras. So I mentioned this mantra to you from Norman Vincent Peale that's been in my head for a long time. Norman Vincent Peale wrote a book called Power of Positive Thinking. I think it was the 70s or 60s. And it was a bestseller at the time. And it's still a classic. And in it, he meets a guy who tells him that his dad was a struggling salesperson all of his life until he started practicing this mantra before every sales call. And then dad became a really successful salesman after he practiced it. And the dad had passed away and given this credit to his son. And it's the Norman Vincent prayer/mantra. Here it goes. I am divinely guided. I believe I'll always take a right turn in the road. I believe God will always make a way even if there is no way. I read that mantra 30 years ago in a book and the story behind it. I still repeat it, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. On my dog walk in the last couple of hours, for some reason it just popped in my head. I'm so used to repeating it in my head all the time, it just popped in my head. And I said it for the next 5 minutes as I was walking the dog, started to walk the dog.
I think you've shared that with us before.
Yeah.
That sounded familiar. Once you said it, it sounded very familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. And so mantras, what they do is they stabilize your thoughts, which stabilizes your nervous system, which stabilizes your actions, takes you to a place where you want to go. Again, it's all about recovery. Good shots and bad shots will take you off your game. Good shots you'll feel good about. You won't be distraught. You won't be looking to improve things. But bad shots is where things get really hairy, right? That's when we get much more emotional. Mantras like
So,
that one is a good one. I have the mantra that I follow all the time that I've told you about. But go ahead. You were going to say something?
well, yeah, I was going to bring up the article that you wrote this weekend.
Yeah.
And I want to just because we're talking about golf and life, your first line was, "I think I figured this out," and isn't that basically what every golfer says, and then shank it?
Exactly. Exactly. And so I figured it out, or the famous last words of any golfer. I figured out my swing. And then he goes out and shoots a 90 or 100 or whatever, depending on their goal, right?
On
Or
a 9-hole.
on a 9-hole, right? And so it's the same thing in life. Just when you think you got to figure it out, you throw in a twist and a turn. Your wife could leave you. You could lose your job. Your son could get hurt. Bad things happen. Last year, you had a granddaughter who was in the hospital. Scary as shit, right? So we had
Absolutely.
to worry about that. I was emotionally engaged in your pain, right? Because that's how painful it
Yeah.
was to have a child and even a grandchild hurt. That sucks. That's not good. So you got to pray and you got to think and you got to repeat mantras, repeat prayers. The Hail Marys is a mantra for the Catholic priests, right? The Lord's Prayer for a lot of Christians, repeating mantra and repeating prayer. Mantras can be prayers that you repeat over and over again. And you know my favorite mantra of all time, the base mantra. And I know you've been doing it for the last year and a half. Tell me more about that one. What's that mantra that I love so much?
Calm, centered, and loving, my man. I'm working
I am.
on it. And you know what? Some days it's easy, and other days it's like, how in the hell is this so hard? Why is this? Why is it difficult? Why does this not? You know what I mean? Because it's just one of those. It's easy. It's calm, centered, loving. It's 3 words, and it should be simple.
You're missing 2 words out of it.
Calm, centered, loving, focused.
No.
Which one? I am.
am.
I am. I am. That's what I was missing. The I am, calm, centered, and loving.
And what
I
happened
am.
is you didn't fully embody it when you don't say I am.
And you know what? That's probably been my biggest obstacle. That is so. I feel like I have a breakthrough right here. Could you actually see, you saw it on my face, did you not?
Yeah, I did. And it's really interesting. It isn't things that we don't know. We all know what the right thing is. We've all watched a golfer swing the ball. We can replicate it through our brain like you won't believe. We're so busy about the backswing and the downswing and the wrist movement and the follow through. We can't put it all together. The brain in the guy from Inner Game of Tennis says, don't worry about the swing. You already know how to do it. Just focus on where you want the ball to go and land. In tennis or golf, it'll get there. You know how to swing? Everybody knows how to swing. Every single person. And even if they don't know how to swing, professional golfers, 120 of them that make it to the tour, they have 120 different ways of swinging. So it doesn't really matter what your swing is like. All that matters is there's a stick called a club and there's a ball. You just got to make contact. That's it. And point it to where you want it to go to. So life can be that simple. And what we're talking about mantra is you got to own it. I am calm, centered, and loving. Anthony Robbins in his books talks about these mental schematic things that describe who we are. Forgot the exact word that he uses. Metaphors. These are metaphors for our lives. If you embody the metaphor of I am calm, centered, and loving, you will go on to do being calm, centered, and loving. But you got to own it. You got to say, I am. I talk about being divinely guided. I still do that. I have another one that I've told you about. I am lovingly rational, inspired, and grateful. I repeat those 3 words for 20 minutes today. I feel grateful. I feel inspired. I changed my mindset. I had a meeting today this morning that didn't go where I wanted to go to. It wasn't a bad meeting. It was a meeting with a very important person who I thought was much more important than he is, but it went in a different direction. I had to walk the dog and get my mind back together. So I did these 3 mantras on my 45-minute walk. I got myself to a level of being inspired, rational, worthy, attracting what I want, more customers, more investors, whatever. So I think when you talk about money and success, mantras are very helpful to go between your ears to help you focus on what you want and not talk about the last shot, just like in golf.
You have a way to wrap this all up with a nice little caddy, and I'm trying to pull up golf words again. The beer cart, the beverage cart.
Beverage cart, right? And so I think the best way to enjoy the golf game and just enjoy life as it is to keep it simple. Just got to make contact. Just got to take action when it's uncomfortable in the right direction, right? Hit the ball in the right direction. Take your life to the right direction. Look at where you want to go. That's the direction. Use mantras to help you repeat whatever your mantra that you want it to be. Make it your mantra. Ours is all concentrated loving. I have another one of the one I've been using lately is I attract people, places, and opportunities that serve my purpose. I attract people, places, and opportunities that serve my purpose. Go figure out your purpose. Go make it happen. It's simple, just like golf. Hit the ball. Just make contact in the right direction.
And that wraps up this episode of Manifest 360. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't just think about it, apply it. Alignment isn't a vibe, it's a practice. Belief, emotion, strategy, and action, all moving in the same direction, that's where momentum lives. Be sure to follow, share with someone building something meaningful, and join us next week as we continue helping you manifest wealth and purpose. Manifest 360 is a podcastforhire.com production.